Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and welcome to another fantastic episode where we continue to look at Red Wave 22. The only thing I need from you guys is to please hit that subscribe button. I don't know if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, whatever the case may be. Just subscribe and let us know you're there by dropping a like. Hit us up with some comments and hit the notifications bell so that way you know every single time we post a new episode. One thing I want to let you know about is Infinity the Math Institute, where you don't get more math problems, you get solutions. Play tape. All right, so I'm really super excited about this episode. I've been excited about this episode for a while, and as I've been doing this week's worth of research, I just realized, forget about it. If we didn't get kicked off for Segal Chata, we got temporarily kicked off because of Joey Gilbert. This guy's going to get me kicked off. I'm going to try to reel him in. But without further ado, running for Congress in CD3, Mr. Noah Malgeri.
Great to be with
Noah.
you, John.
How you doing?
Really well, really well.
You know, I've been doing some research, and you've been getting some press nationwide with your campaign here. How's it going so far?
It's going great. The campaign's a tremendous amount of fun. We love getting out there, raising awareness, telling the truth. I mean, that's the most satisfying part of it.
Less seldom come by.
Right. I mean, I've been telling people, you know, value is a function of scarcity in any commodity, in any asset, right? Right now, truth has never been more scarce in my lifetime than it is today, and it's consequently very, very valuable. But it's also like contraband, too, in a sense. I mean, truth, you can get shook down by the government for the possession and distribution of truth today, right? I mean,
right.
you just, that was your intro, right?
Yeah, and easy. You just, in that first introduction, you just unpacked like 12 different things that we need to talk about. Why don't we start out with his campaign video, and let's get to know Noah first. Play tape.
They told me to stay out of it. They told me the decision had already been made. The smoke-filled room has made its choice. Congresswoman Susie Lee votes with the Democrat socialists like AOC 92% of the time and with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. The Democrat establishment has its choice. The Republican establishment's answer to this? Fail upwards. Time and time again, they pick candidates who don't motivate Republicans and who don't put America first. What? Talk about a false choice. My name is Noah Malgeri. You may not have heard my name before because I'm not a career politician. Get to know me so you can make a real choice. I'm a father who wants his boys to go to quality schools, not to get lectured with woke cancel culture, critical race theory racism, or taught that America is evil. I'm a business owner and an inventor. I believe in free enterprise. And I know that when the government gets out of the way, Americans are capable of amazing things. I'm a former prosecutor, an Army combat veteran. I took my oath to defend the Constitution seriously. I'm a Christian who is tired of seeing Democrats close churches, turn their backs on Israel, and abort babies. I stand for law and order. We must enforce our laws consistently and effectively to keep our communities thriving. I'll fight for our right to keep and bear arms. I'll fight against the rampant election fraud we saw in the last election, and I'll secure our borders. Let's finish the wall. Oh yeah, and I'm an engineer, so I know a little bit about building things. I know that your social media company is not your friend, and legacy media is nothing but state propaganda. I'll fight to expose big tech and the media and hold them accountable for their rampant ideological censorship and bias. Putting my life on hold to run for Congress was a difficult choice. But almost 250 years ago, our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, and ended up creating the greatest country on earth. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And if the choice is between freedom or socialism, I'll choose freedom every time. Because I don't want my kids growing up in a world where they don't get to make a choice.
Well, I like it.
Thanks, Sean.
I like it. Did you do that yourself, or did you have somebody do that?
We had some help,
it's
yeah.
custom. It's different.
It was, really authentic, kind of, do it yourself. I mean, we filmed that at a house we don't even live in anymore. It's partially filmed in a part of the area that's not even in the district anymore.
Right, you were saying Boulder City, right?
Right.
You filmed it saying, let me show Boulder City I'm here, and now it's not even in the district because of redistricting.
We live down there, and, honestly, we've just been relying on and depending on interviews like this
Right.
rather than, and I think preferable to, scripted videos like that. I'd rather do something spontaneous and
we've
authentic.
got you. We have you on Newsmax. We have you on the local scene. Even before you were a campaign manager, when you were a lawyer, we got you on the news. I was on the news a few times with Infinity. So, I mean, that's more authentic. And I think nothing's more authentic than 60 minutes of you can't hide behind a talking point right here. So, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Massachusetts,
Right.
Born in Connecticut, so New England area. Grew up in
The bad side of Connecticut. I mean, the east side of Connecticut, they like the Red Sox, and they're the evil side.
Right,
The
right.
west side of Connecticut, they're cool. They're Yankee fans.
Well, I was born in Hartford, but my early part of my life, I grew up in the west side of Connecticut, over by New York.
Good.
And then moved to Eastern Mass.
So who do you like in baseball?
Red Sox for sure. Yeah. It's one of the greatest teams in all of sports.
The Yankees.
they're good too.
Well, I mean, if you're going to compare all
I
of
know,
sports,
but
even if the Red Sox are the second best team in all of sports, then the Yankees are number one.
The Red Sox wouldn't be so fun to follow and so great and so interesting if it weren't for the Yankees.
No, the Cubs are the lovable losers. You can't take that term either.
No, the Yankees are the lovable losers. No.
Easy, Tiger. I'll take the evil empire. You ain't calling us losers. I'll tell you that
that's true.
right
You
now.
can't.
So what was it like growing up in New England?
It was great.
Said wicked fa?
Yeah, we did.
In the car?
We did
the
say
Harvard
that.
Yard?
I mean, there's nothing else like it. The history, the seasons,
Right.
the architecture, the people, the culture, the seafood. I love New England.
Right, not too far from Boston, where obviously we have a lot of history there
Right.
with our revolution. And I've been in Vegas for 17 years, and I still got my New York accent. How come you don't have your Boston
I
accent?
know, that's crazy. I never really had a really thick Boston accent. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I did go to school at Boston University.
Right. I just imagine that everybody up there talks like that. I'm sure you had talked a little bit with
I
that
probably
accent.
did. I probably
but
did,
I
but-
don't hear it at all.
Yeah, it probably comes out more at certain times.
When you're with other people from Boston,
Exactly.
I bet.
Exactly, so.
It's funny because the first 10 years I was in Vegas, I would visit New York, and I still didn't hear the accent. Now, when somebody comes to Vegas, I'm like, you're from Long
Isn't
Island,
that funny?
right? Yeah, I
Isn't
didn't
that
even
funny?
notice it, and now it's pretty distinct.
Yeah.
So I am losing it a little bit.
Right.
So what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a car designer. I wanted to be
A car designer.
Yeah, I wanted to be an automotive engineer. In fact, when I was a
Really?
little kid, I was drawing cars. I even
Really?
submitted. I have a letter that I sent to a company that doesn't even exist anymore, AMC, American Motor Corporation.
Right.
They used to have a car called a Gremlin and
Right.
some other cars like that. I drew a car. I think I called it. I can't remember what I called it, but my parents sent it in to AMC as a submission. And they actually wrote me back and said, "Thank you for this design, Noah."
And
We
how
really
old were you?
appreciate it."
9th grade or 12th
No,
grade?
no. I was like in second grade.
Really?
In second grade. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I always wanted to be an automotive designer. Love cars,
Were you
motorcycles.
good at math?
Pretty good at math. Yeah. I later studied mechanical engineering
Right.
at Boston University, and took a lot of math. And I enjoyed math and,
Right.
and physics and all of the engineering courses that we
Right.
took. So that's what I wanted to be initially. That's what I went to
Car designer, because my son is 18 and he likes math and he says he wants to be an engineer, but I think that's something that kids who are good at math just say because they don't know what else to say,
Right.
So I want to be in engineering. But there's 100 different kinds of engineering, from civil engineering, aerospace engineering, nuclear engineering, you name it.
You know what's a great field to get into if you're good at math is economics. It's so widely applicable to so many types of fields of analysis. It's so useful too.
You know, I used to say, before campaign season rolled around, I really wanted to talk to an economist, more macroeconomics, and talk about the world and what certain things and how things are affecting the cause and effect of everything that's going on, whether it's COVID or you're talking about, you know, the woke police, you know, like they're creating an industry of anti-racism, and then you talk about like organizations like Black Lives Matter, whether that's just a Democrat fundraising tool or it's an actual organization looking for communism as well as, you know, the anti-racist philosophy.
Right.
But I was just saying, all this money is going into a vacuum. Like in the old days, like I would give you money for steel, and then they would give you money to build a car, and then somebody would take the car and they would put it on a lot, and there'd be a salesman, and then the money would go in circles.
Well, it's a great way to put it. I like the way you put that. I mean, you're talking about value, certificates of value,
right,
which is a piece of currency or a digital equivalent,
right,
being represented by actual corresponding wealth, an actual asset that has some tangible value. Now we're in a Alice in Wonderland world where we create the money without creating the wealth, and that creates something we'd call inflation. So that's exactly what you're talking about, and that's a great way to put it.
And you talk about even, you know, them printing 80% of the money that's out in the world right now, U.S. dollars, has been printed since 2020.
Crazy.
I mean, that's mind-blowing.
It's an intentional destruction of the sovereign currency of the United States of America.
Well, that's a nice little foreshadowing, because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that, you know, I think it's more honesty than brashness. I mean, I just feel like so many people think these things, and even whether you want to call them rhinos or you want to call them people that are trying not to get kicked off of YouTube, you know, people are afraid to say what they really think about some of these things.
It's an epidemic of fear that's hamstringing us, and the enemies of America and freedom and free society and the American experiment and our way of life, American civilization and culture, depend on the ability to intimidate, bully, and suppress truth through causing people to self-censor by threatening and actually executing consequences on them for when they do engage in truthfulness. They're too truthful. I mean, we saw the Department of Homeland Security issued a heightened terrorist warning, state of alert. One of the justifications was there is an increased prevalence of misinformation and disinformation spreading and cultivating distrust in authority and government institutions. First of all...
And what they do is they suppress that. Like, that's going to earn our trust?
Well, the first thing I should say about that is it is absolutely my right and indeed my obligation as a concerned citizen and a father to distrust my government.
Right.
I'm entitled to distrust my government. It's my money.
Right.
And I should be. It's a healthy distrust of your government to keep them in check, right? So they're saying exercising your rights as a citizen and behaving as a responsible, engaged citizen is a cause for a heightened state of terrorist alert. Because when they say disinformation and misinformation, that means anything that diverges from the regime narrative.
Right. And we're going to get into Ukraine and stuff later, but you even talk about last week they were scrubbing social media of any talk about a biological lab of any kind in Ukraine. A week later, CNN reports it, and then it's okay. And some people are like into Facebook, right? I mean, they got their pictures of their kids from 2008, and they have all their memories. And then you could get kicked off of Facebook for saying that there was a biolab in Ukraine, and then a week later it's true. And does Facebook go back and give these people their jobs back? The vaccine mandates are being lifted. People lost their jobs. Are people able to go back and get their jobs back and their seniority back? And I mean, it's, you know.
You know what, John, you make so many good points there. So the distinctive for my campaign that you alluded to from the outset that I made a commitment to adhere to and observe in the way I conduct my campaign is that I starve for truth as a citizen and as a voter, right? I look around and I see what I see, and then I hear what the media tells me, and there's a disconnect. And they want to tell me I'm crazy and I need to listen to what they say. So I said I'm not going to support any candidates or politicians who are not going to level with me and be honest about what's really going on. I want to know what their ideologies are and their values, but number one, I want to know that they're honest. How am I going to trust them in office if they won't even tell me the truth as candidates? I said the number one thing I'm going to do, my touchstone, is going to be, I'm always going to tell people my professional opinion as,
brutally honest as it is.
yeah, as an engineer, an attorney, and former Army officer, I'm going to tell you this is what I see going on in the world. If you like it, that's great. If you don't vote for me.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you the truth so you know. So that's why I take positions on every issue and I don't back away from anything, because I think that's the number one thing that we're in short supply, and that's actually the root cause of what's going on in this country is now people are afraid of the truth. Now, the other thing you talked about that I thought was fascinating too, you said at the outset about, about money and value, right? Think about what they're doing in Ukraine right now, okay? The Congress of the United States in 24 hours approved $14 billion to send to Ukraine. Let's just take a step back and analyze that for a second. Number one is there is no $14 billion like sitting in an account.
Right. They're either going to print it or create it.
There's no $14 billion. So what they did is they said, we're going to take a loan in the name of your kids to pay back this loan. Your kids are going to be on the hook to pay back the loan that we're going to take out, but we're not going to take the money and put it in the United States. We're going to send $14 billion to your kids that we're going to take a loan in our name. No, we're not going to lend it to the Ukrainians.
And with all due respect, Pelosi and Biden will be dead.
We're not going to lend it to the Ukrainians and make them pay us back. We're going to take a loan out in our own name, in your kid's name, and send $14 billion and send it to one of the most corrupt countries in the world,
right,
without question,
right,
to what?
Support their defense.
Support their defense. Resist the Russians.
Does the big guy get 10%?
Yeah, exactly. Good question, right? It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Where
I think it was number 3. There was something like before the whole Trump and everything, and everything turned into a circus. Back before they were like kind of off the radar,
right?
They were the number 3 most corrupt government in the world.
So Ukraine is a client state of the Democrat Party, and we could talk about that. It goes way back.
But I mean, and we got it on the list. But I mean, I want to talk about all that from Vitaly Klitschko and the Nazis that actually exist in Western Ukraine. I mean, literal actual, like Nazis.
Actual.
And that's another thing about telling the truth is, if you were to tell me that Adolf Hitler killed his mom in 1930, and I say, no, Hitler's mom died in 1907, people will say, well, are you a Hitler apologist, or are you defending Hitler? Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm just saying he didn't kill his mom. Right. I'm just saying I know that didn't happen,
Right.
And now, you want to point out some of the truth about what's going on in something that could blow up. I mean, it really could turn into World War III. Right. Can't we know the truth?
Oh, brother, you're absolutely right. It's so many of these questions. It's a moral panic, right? Takes ahead of the moral panic seizes control of your emotions, your faculties, your reasoning, and that's what they use to bully you. So they say, look, COVID, right? It's a moral panic. You have to do what you have to do. There's no time to think about, deliberate, to figure out, analyze, look at data, do things in a deliberate way, in a deliberative process, systematic way. We just have to instantly do this without thinking. Whenever they do that, take a step back, because they're trying to ram down some agenda. And I 100% support the people of Ukraine and their sovereignty.
100%. And the people of Russia that are getting all their bank accounts taken. They have no more McDonald's. They have no more, iPad stuff. And the thing is, these Russian civilians are almost as victimized as the Ukraine. Of course, they're not getting bombed on, but their whole life is being turned upside down, and they're not invading Ukraine. The mom and pop and the people that are just trying to get by in life.
You said so many things there. I mean, first of all, I do believe we're at what we will look back on in 2 years as what was the opening stages of World War III, okay? I do believe that 100%. Number 2, you said something about McDonald's and all the corporations. It brings up a great point, John. In the old days, in the post-World War II order for 50, 70 years, the nation states were the most powerful entities in the globe. They controlled the conduct of the corporations and citizens who operated within their boundaries.
Right. Whether they were communist, capitalist, or anything in between.
Right. Now, the nation state power has been overtaken by the corporations. The most powerful entities in the world that call the shots, the shot callers, are the corporations that use the nation states and the residual administrative apparatus to impose their own will.
Right. Now, I mean, Google is basically the emperor of the earth, is what you're saying.
Pfizer, Google. Now, what are the hardest hitting sanctions? Some of the hardest hitting sanctions that are hitting Russia what you were talking about, the corporate sanctions,
Right.
right? There's this corporate groupthink, there's this ESG investment,
Right.
there's this, but they are the ones who direct the course of history.
I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but if you take ESG banks and if you take McDonald's and you take all this crap, Google and Facebook, and you take it out of Russia, they're going to kick our ass in 50 years because we're going to be mind-numbed fat slobs and they're going to be outside playing in the dirt because they don't have Google and McDonald's.
Yeah, it's a great point. But back to the initial thing was we talk about moral panic and the way we direct public opinion and public sentiment. So $14 billion in 24 hours, borrowed money, our kids owe it to a corrupt country. For 3 years straight, we couldn't get $4 billion to build the wall at our own border. Congress wouldn't approve
Right.
it. But $14 billion in 24 hours to send to a corrupt nation. What does that tell you about what's going on? And this is Republicans and Democrats.
Well, you don't even have to guess anymore. You were wondering 4 years ago, 2018, why they keep stopping us from building the wall. They're like, oh, it's the money, it's the spending. Baloney. It's 4 years later, and now the border's open.
Right.
So that's what you want. You don't want to have a border. Don't pretend it's about the irresponsible Nancy Pelosi irresponsible spending.
Right.
That was our problem. $4 billion on building a wall. But we have a lot more to talk about.
I better let you
Ukraine.
take control of this.
Yeah. Because I'm getting in trouble over here because I'm not staying on schedule. Because I want to talk about Ukraine in regards to the law. And you became a lawyer. You said you went to Boston University. First of all, you're growing up on the East Coast, as did I. You're going to Boston University, which is a somewhat liberal university. You're going to law school. Were you liberal or Democrat when you were? They say if you're not a Democrat before the age of 30, you don't have a heart. And if you're not a Republican after the age of 30, then you don't have a brain.
Right.
So how liberal were you when you were going to universities and stuff like this and becoming a lawyer on the East Coast?
No, good question. I wasn't liberal growing up. I mean, I went to Boston University, but I did ROTC. I was in engineering. I like to do all the same kind of things I do now, like cars and shooting.
So you were more buried in logic than in politics.
Yeah, I was really buried in my academics.
When did you graduate high school?
93.
Oh, all right. I graduated in 94. Very cool.
Yeah,
So, I grew up and Ronald Reagan was my president.
Right.
From the age of 4 to the age of 12, it was Ronald Reagan. So that's kind of who defined what a president is for
Right.
me. And it's the same for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but you were big into cars and engineering and math and stuff like that. You went to Boston. What did you major in at Boston University?
Mechanical engineering.
Very good.
And then I got commissioned. I did ROTC.
You did ROTC,
Yeah.
and that was for what branch?
Army.
Army.
Yeah. So I got commissioned into the Army. I was a second lieutenant in the Army. I was an engineer officer. And I applied to the Army, see if I could go straight to law school as an officer. Because I wanted to be an attorney. I actually wanted to be a patent attorney. So I went.
Why? What? Because of you wanted to design cars, or?
I wanted to work in the automotive industry, but I wanted to do something that involved the law because I love the law. I love policy.
Right.
I love problem solving. But it's similar to engineering in the sense you're solving problems.
Right. I mean, engineer, inventor, and patent attorney do go together. I mean, I'm guessing that's where you're going with this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a excellent way to use your engineering degree as a patent attorney to help inventors because you're cultivating innovation, you're facilitating innovation,
Right.
you're helping inventors and innovators get their product to market and get it protected. And I just found that really, really appealing. The law I always found was really appealing too. So I asked the Army if they would let me go to law school right after as an officer. They let me do it. So I went to George Washington University Law School in D.C.
Wow.
And studied law there in D.C. It was a fantastic experience. Had a great time down there.
And the Army paid for it?
No, the Army didn't pay for it. They let me do it, but I paid for it. They paid for my undergrad.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
I would have owed them more time if they had paid for my law school.
Gotcha.
So I didn't necessarily. I thought that.
So you're on the hook for 4 years as an officer.
Exactly.
For your undergrad.
Right.
So they said, I'll pay for your law school, but you're going to have to give us 8 years when you finish.
They would have. I didn't even apply for it because I didn't.
Because you
want,
knew. You
yeah,
knew.
I didn't want to
Make a
obligate
promise
myself.
you can't keep.
Yeah,
or
just-
don't want to keep.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know. It seemed like a long time in the future
Right.
to obligate myself to.
Right, and then you're 33. You're thinking, wait a minute, whoa, yeah.
And at that time, law school was expensive, but it's not nowhere like today. I mean, it was insane.
That's crazy.
It's insane. I don't know how people do it. But so I went to law school, graduated, and went into the Army at that point as a JAG officer. So
cool.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I mean, but I saw, first of all, in your campaign video, I mean, you're jacked. And you went to the Army, and you said, I saw somewhere that you were airborne. So, I mean, those are dudes who fight. I mean, I think of a JAG officer, I think of, like the TV show, or you think about a lawyer in a courtroom. I think of an airborne. I think of people parachuting in with an M16.
Well, I went to airborne school and air assault school where you rappel out of helicopters. But I didn't ever jump out of an airplane into combat or anything
But you did training.
I did training. I was certified for it, and I had the qualification. Because I was training to be an engineer officer, which is a more combat-oriented role. Because of that, when I was a JAG officer, I got assignments that were more at the front lines. So because of my background in training. So
if they need a JAG officer towards the front, they're going to get the guy that has the airborne experience.
That's what actually happened to me. So I ended up going into Iraq very, very early, and actually in 2003.
Really, that's the real early.
Yeah,
that's when we saw the what did they call it? The shock and awe campaign.
Right, with the Scuds, and we were in, Kuwait, and we crossed the berm in spring of 2003, early in 2003. In fact, we were in Iraq before it was even. We were in Baghdad before it was even reported. When the information minister of Iraq was on CNN saying the Americans are nowhere near Baghdad, we were there.
Right.
So
you personally?
Yeah, I was there. I was in the airport.
Wow.
So it did work out that I was able to use that training because I got placed into do operational law, use rules of engagement and occupation law.
And now you're talking about like Geneva. You're not talking about the U.S. Constitution. You're talking about international law.
Exactly, John. You are all over this stuff. So yes, it's
no, I'm not. I'm learning. I mean, this is fascinating.
Yeah, Geneva Conventions, international law, occupation law. Rules of armed conflict, rules of use of force.
Right. Chemical weapons, what's legal.
Yeah.
Even putting a hole with spikes up is illegal.
Stuff like that. Targeting decisions, collateral damage assessments, all that type of stuff where you have legal implications. So we're advising commanders on those decisions.
Right, and what experience to relate to today, which we'll talk about later. So continue.
Yeah.
You're in Iraq. You're crossing the berm. They don't even say officially that you're there.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience, very eye-opening, because we were invading a sovereign country with the goal of searching for and neutralizing weapons of mass destruction. And eventually we ended up deposing a dictator and getting rid of his two sons, Uday and Qusay, who were quite brutal. It was quite a brutal regime. But, my understanding at that time was, and what we had been told was, we're going to go in there we're going to neutralize weapons of mass destruction that pose an imminent threat to the world.
Right.
And, ultimately we didn't find that, and we also were under the understanding we were just going to go there and do this operation, and it wasn't going to be, a 15-year thing.
Right.
We'd be gone in a year.
Right. Unofficially, do you think there was weapons of mass destruction?
I think they either were there and they got taken out in advance of our arrival, which it could have been into Syria or some other places,
or not.
Or they weren't there.
You don't know.
We don't know. I didn't see any.
Right, but I'm saying, what kind of a hint did you get when you were talking and you were deposing people, or when you were talking to other soldiers? You didn't really get a feel for whether there might have been there, or
I didn't get a sense of when they. We do know that Saddam had used chemical weapons
at some point,
in the past, in the terrible war with Iran,
and he said he had destroyed them.
Yeah, but it was more of an issue of a yellow cake and nuclear type of weapons and refinement that and also chems.
Right, dirty bombs.
Yeah, dirty bombs, exactly. Your dirty bombs was another thing, and so we did have Scud missiles come in Kuwait and other types of armament. We didn't know when we were there. We didn't know
that you were going to actually go in.
Well, we didn't know if the weapons were containing any of that stuff. So when the missiles were coming in, we did put on chemical weapon suits
in case you hit a chemical weapon depot,
or in case the weapons were armed with those type of armaments.
Oh, I thought you meant from the U.S. attacking
Iraq.
No.
So when we were in Kuwait, the Iraqis were attacking us with Scuds. We didn't know if they had that type of stuff. But anyway, so that was an incredible experience.
And you wonder, though, if the higher-ups knew they were lying about weapons of mass destruction. And then they're having thousands of U.S. troops put on special protection against chemical weapons that the higher-ups know they are. They're actually doing us a disservice, you know what I mean? They're making you do extra work, which makes you more, at risk of getting hurt. You know, if you're having to put on extra things, or you're less mobile, or you can't breathe as good, as you can't run as good. And meanwhile, if they knew that there wasn't weapons of mass destruction, but they're making you go through the theatrics of just in case there is, you know, that's, you know, trying to save the word treasonous for the second hour, but wouldn't that be as well, you know?
Yeah, this whole thing, I mean, you know, what you come to the realization of at some point is so much of what you hear, what you're told, and what we're sold is for ulterior motives. And usually it's pretextual justifications to get sentiment and support behind a particular agenda or operation that serves the interests of an elite few rather than what we're told.
Well, it sounds like what you were alluding to earlier. It's like they got their agenda in this hand, and then whatever happens, coronavirus, let's slip that agenda into the coronavirus response. Russia, let's slip that agenda into the Russian response.
That's exactly right. You know, whenever they have an opportunity to take their agenda and advance it through something like that, and they can use it, that's what they'll do, and that's what we're having. That's what we're getting pulled into World War III right now. We have to wake up and understand that we absolutely cannot permit ourselves to get. I think we're already in the opening stages of World War III.
I've heard others say the same thing.
But we need to resist this. We can't get caught up in this war hysteria, this moral panic. We have to understand that it's not in the. From my perspective, it's not just America first. It's America first, America last, and everything in between. Okay? What is the interest of the people of the United States, the families of the United States, the businesses of the United States, to get involved in a war, an armed conflict with a nuclear armed nation that's allied with the other nuclear armed nation? China and Russia now are a bloc against the United States, which the Biden administration created that as a consequence of their own incompetence. They actually created that intentionally, in a sense, I mean, foreseeable consequences of their behavior. They created this massively powerful alliance between Russia and China, and they were coordinating this. So Putin was coordinating with Xi before the advance. He went in there before Putin and Xi met.
Right, and at that same time, we are talking to Xi, and Xi is taking the information we give him and saying, hey, Putin, this is what they know about you so far. These are the satellite pictures they have of you. And, you know, progressives love to talk about bloviating about how imperialistic and horrible America is. Do you think if we were to relinquish our world power status and Russia-China bloc take it over, do you think they'll be less imperialistic than we were?
No.
I mean, the world has never seen peace in its history than it's seen when USA is number one, the world power.
It's an amazing and so straightforward observation. You know, the nature abhors a vacuum. There's always going to be some force that's going to fill the power vacuum. So the choices are not either, you know, we have one country imperialistic or no country's imperialistic. The second option is not an option. There's always going to be some
looking to advance,
aspiring empire. Okay. Now, what exactly?
Except us.
I couldn't you say it like you?
I'm so, you know, because they keep talking about us like we are the evil empire, and we're not. We really aren't. I mean, we could have taken over SWATs. We could have taken over other countries, and we never ever did. I'm not saying we're innocent. We didn't. I know we tried to install governments. You know, Ukraine, 2013. But but we're still less imperialistic than any other world power. The Romans, the Turkish, you know, all these great world powers.
A more ambitious empire would have, after World War II, taken Japan, would have taken Western Europe.
And boy, wouldn't that be great strategically, militarily, if we just owned Japan. Hawaii and Japan were both part of us.
We did the Marshall Plan in Europe. We could have taken Europe. A more ambitious empire, rapacious empire, would at this point use the failed narco state drug cartel war in Mexico as an opportunity and excuse and pretext to take over Mexico.
Right.
We haven't done any of that stuff.
Right.
And that's not our aspiration as a people.
But meanwhile, if we had a base in Japan and we had a base in Kuwait and we had our own states all around the world, we would be much better off at protecting ourselves, but that wouldn't be the right thing to do.
We had a couple of strategic locations that we abandoned, I think, too aggressively and caused us a lot of problem. Certainly Afghanistan. Afghanistan.
Bagram.
Bagram. The Chinese were in there on their planes on the ground. We could get into the whole Afghanistan
I
thing.
know. I have a feeling we could talk for 5 straight hours. Let me just see how I'm doing so far. Oh, okay. So then you were in Iraq.
Yeah.
And then you came back, and then you weren't doing too good after that. You had some problems with alcohol. You got arrested.
Yeah, I got married in Europe. Came back when we came back from.
How'd you meet your wife?
We met her. I met her in Europe. She was in the army too, and
So she was an American in Europe, and you guys met.
Yeah,
there.
we got married. She got deployed to Iraq right after I got back. It was very rocky, and I moved back to the United States. It's the first time I've been.
And she was still in the Middle East.
She was in the Middle East, and
I bet you things would be different if she wasn't away. If she was with you.
Yeah, it was a very tough time for me getting back into civilian life and getting thrust headlong into practicing law at a high level. And people, what it is civilians who hadn't been there. I'd been gone for over 5 years away from the country, but also the whole notion of all the things that were important to people, like this assignment's important, and where we go to dinner is important, and the clothes that you wear are important, and the weather's important. To me, those things didn't seem like very important.
Right.
And I just couldn't get back into it.
Right.
I just couldn't get back into it. And my wife and I were having a real problem. So I was just going out to the bars. I mean, I would go out, I would walk, or I would ride my bike because I knew I was going to drink too much.
Right.
And I was by myself because my wife was in.
Right, so you're all by yourself. You're
Yeah.
kind of not understanding why people are worried about their nail
Yeah.
appointment when kids are dying over there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't get it. People don't get me. I don't get them. I don't understand all the references, all the pop culture references, because I've been gone for 5 years.
Right, so you don't know what on fleek means.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this stuff meant. So I would walk or ride my bike to the bars, and I knew I was going to drink.
Get having.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't drive, and I would walk home or ride my bike home. And I would get,
Blasted.
Well, yeah, and then they would say, you get in the car, man, you're drunk, and I'd have to pay a ticket, like $130. It's a drunk in public. So that's what
It was
happened.
that bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so that's what I did, and then I was like, this is ridiculous, and so that finally I think that actually helped me a lot,
Right.
in a sense.
You got arrested.
Yeah, I got
What
arrested.
did you get arrested for?
No, for drunk in public.
For drunken. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it?
Yeah.
That's the extent of your
Yeah.
criminal history?
Yeah, drunk in public.
Oh, man, I was ready to blow that. I was
No,
like, ooh,
man.
arrested. Let's find out about
No,
that.
it was drunk in public.
Drunk in public.
Drunk in public, and I said I didn't go to prison or anything. I had to pay a fine.
Right,
It was
right.
It was like a ticket. It was like $130.
Right.
But I did get arrested for it.
Right.
And that was a wake up call.
Right. It's still sobering nonetheless. You did get arrested.
It was more than one way, yeah. So I was, I'm an attorney. I'm like, I can't do this. I get this career. I'm a patent attorney. So I think that was good for me.
Right. Getting arrested, probably the best part.
I think it was good because it was
Right.
it was low level, but it kind of scares you a little bit.
Hey.
Yeah.
And then you tell your wife, and she's probably
Yeah.
yelling at you.
See, but it wasn't like a DUI or anything, but it was
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was the lowest misdemeanor.
It was perfect.
But you're still in
it
the back
was
of the
low
car.
enough, right?
You're
right,
still in the
right.
back of the
Exactly, right. It's low enough that we could talk about it and laugh about it, but it was serious enough that you could say, "Hey, the next step is not going to be."
Yeah,
so,
we don't want to head down this road.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then, so how did you deal with that?
Oh, nothing. I mean, it wasn't like I just
You needed time.
Yeah, I needed time. I just got to get healthy, go to the gym, emotionally, really make sure I was grounded and getting back to getting back to church, getting to the Word of God quite a bit more than I had been. It's hard to find a church in Europe. I mean, really? For an American. You have very few choices, and getting back into the United States, I was like really going to make an effort. So I started going to a couple of.
Where are you now?
In my faith?
No, that's the follow-up question. Where physically are you? Where are you?
Oh, in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay.
Yeah, I was in right outside DC.
By DC, right?
Yeah.
And
so
now, where are you in your faith?
No, I'm a faith. I'm a sinner saved by grace. By faith in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior, and he's everything I have is due to him. I think he's led me on a path that he was in control of the whole entire time as I look back on it. And I believe that my willingness and inclination to speak the truth now and take the heat is because of some of the things that I've been through where I don't get scared. Also, I know that I'm in God's hands. Right. He has me right where he wants me. The safest place in the world is to be at the center of God's will. And so I try to seek it and live it, but I'm not fearful. That's the main thing. Because of the things I've been through and because of the things I've done, I have the luxury the maturity where I'm just not afraid to say the truth. Because what's the worst thing? If I'm saying the truth and my conscience is clear, and I'm an American citizen and a Christian, a father, a husband, and a patriot, it's my obligation to tell people if they ask me what I believe.
Right. And
I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm going to exercise my freedom of conscience. I'm not going to shy away from naming the name of Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I think that cultural deterioration that we've experienced is a direct result of getting away from God as a society, as a culture, whether it's in the education system or if with the prevalence and celebration even of abortion. Really, it separated us from God, and really, politics is downstream from culture, but culture really is a function of people's spiritual existence. That's why the Marxists and the communists are so obsessed with the elimination of religion. Of course, they have their own religion.
That is a religion.
It's a religion.
Absolutely. Right. They have their idols. They have their, their houses of worship and stuff like that.
Dogmas, yeah.
Malgeri sounds Italian.
It's Italian.
Are you an Italian Catholic? Sicilian? I don't know. Well, what's your ethnicity?
I'm Italian. I'm not Sicilian. I'm Italian, but I'm not a Catholic. I'm an evangelical Christian. Protestant. Yeah.
And you're 100% Italian. You're all four of your grandparents are from Italy?
So I'm probably about 50%. So my grandmother on my mother's side is Italian, 100%.
Right.
She spoke Italian at home with her family when I was growing up. Her husband, my grandfather, who's still alive, he's over 100 years old now. He's German, English, American.
Really?
Yep. And then my other side is my dad is Italian, and my dad's father's Italian. My dad's mother is English too.
That's weird. So you're half Italian, but it's not like half of your family was from Italy.
It's a quarter and a quarter.
Right. That's super cool too.
Yeah,
Very good. Yeah. Very good. And let's see, where are we now? All right. So then you're learning about the law of war, and that's why I wanted to segue into Ukraine again and talk about, what is the international law? What do you see? What laws are being broken? I mean, obviously Putin's a POS. He's, obviously got some sort of narcissistic desire to leave his mark on the world.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to defend him in any way, shape, or form, but about his invasion or occupation or whatever you want to call it. Because I saw things about Crimea. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I just saw this Oliver Stone film on Ukraine, and I saw these things talking about how Zelensky got into power, and the revolution of 2013, Crimea in 2014, where they say 90% of the people voted and 90% of the votes said that they wanted to join Russia. Mm-hmm. And then Russia was asked by Crimea to come defend them because they didn't want Ukraine to overturn their vote or for some reason. Mm-hmm. And there was no shots fired, nobody got killed, nothing happened. But meanwhile, every day on the news, we hear about the invasion of Crimea. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing the truth is somewhere in the middle. I mean, as far as international law and everything, we'll get into what's going on present day. But even just the past 20 years in Ukraine, what kind of international laws were?
It's a great question. So it goes back more than 20 years. So about 100 years ago from today, the Soviet Union, Russia, launched a terrible Holocaust on Ukraine.
And is this Lenin?
Yeah, Lenin.
Okay.
Yeah. They starved 4 or 5 million people to death in the cold of winter, babies, children.
And why? Is it because, were some of them Jewish, or were some of them, what was the reason they didn't like the Ukrainians?
Well, they weren't, the Soviet Union, that's the breadbasket of Europe, Ukraine, right?
Right. That's what connects everything from, here's the Middle East and here's Europe.
Right. So getting into the mind of Lenin, we don't necessarily know, but he he really severely wanted to punish what were seen as separatist, independence-minded Ukrainians who were, the capital of Russia used to be in Ukraine. So, Lenin wanted to punish them, and he did. He oppressed them terribly and killed millions and millions of people. And then, of course, Ukraine was a member of the Soviet Union for the next 70 years. Huge, massive country. I think between...
That's from 48 through 91.
Yeah, 91. So so that happened. That was, many, many years. And then after the fall of the Soviet Union, I think it was like 1996 or 1994.
But even before that, I mean, there's a lot of literally Nazi Hitler supporters in eastern Ukraine.
Yes.
Has that been ever since World War II, or did some Nazis flee Germany and go to Ukraine? Like, why is that such a bastion? I mean, as I'm doing this research, we don't hear about it.
Yeah.
But there's like real, like literally, like, not like the Proud Boys or Nazis.
Right.
I'm talking about like literally like Nazis.
Nazi battalions and
Right.
so forth. Well, okay, so historically, the Soviet Union, their enemy during World War II was the Third Reich, which
Right.
was the Nazis. So
Right.
if you're anti-Soviet
Union.
Russia, you identify more with the Third Reich. Or,
Right. If I hated the Red Sox, I would just be like, yeah, I like the Yankees. But that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to understand the mind of anti-Semitism to me. But for whatever reason, it was the Soviets. Remember, the Soviets were on the side of the Americans and the British against the Nazis. But the Ukrainians were oppressed by the Soviets.
Right. And they actually, Ukraine was fighting on both fronts.
Right.
The Ukraine, during World War II, they were getting in the middle. They signed a pact with one, and they signed a pact with the other. Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of World War II, while it was still going hot between Germany and Russia, Ukraine said, screw both of you. And they were fighting the Nazis on one side, and they were fighting the Russians and saying, you guys just fight each other and stay out of Ukraine.
Right. So there was a lot of stuff that as you mentioned, happened in World War II. But going up to the end of the Cold War, after the fall, to something that's particularly relevant for the current scenario, is that the Soviets had stationed a ton of military of nuclear weapons in Ukraine because of its proximity to Europe.
Right. You don't want to put them in Siberia.
Right. Well, yeah, because Ukraine's right there, right against Europe, and they're closer to the United States. So there were thousands of nukes. Actually, at the end of the Cold War,
like almost half, like 40% of their nuclear arsenal was in Ukraine.
And they were the third biggest nuclear power in the world.
Right, us 1, Russia 2, and now the newly formed Ukraine 3.
So they had all these nukes, right? And the United States didn't want them in Ukraine because they're closer to the United States, and the Russians didn't want them.
Obviously.
Right, the Russians wanted it back. So we signed this agreement called the Budapest Memorandum.
And that would be Great Britain, the United States, Russia, and Ukraine.
Yes. I think was it 94 or 96?
93, I thought.
Oh, it was 93. Okay. So we signed this agreement which said the Ukrainians would agree to get rid of all of the nukes, send them back to Russia to get decommissioned, in exchange for which the United States and Russia would agree never to invade Ukraine again.
Russia.
Yeah, and Russia.
And Russia. Nobody will invade Ukraine.
Nobody will invade.
And if we invade Ukraine, Russia will help the Ukrainians. If Russia invades Ukraine, we will help the Ukrainians.
Right. So you got this Budapest Memorandum, which is binding international law.
Right.
And that's
Bill Clinton, 93. Okay. Even if it's 94 or 95, it's still Bill Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. So then, going back to 2014, you talked about 2014. Right. Okay, so we have this
Well, what about Georgia? Let's talk about Georgia first. Wasn't that 2008? The Chechens?
The Chechens. Yeah, you had the Chechen separatists. You had and that was Putin too, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's when Putin started. That was, I think, Putin's first big fight.
Yeah. So you had the Chechen separatists, and Putin absolutely demolished them. I mean, brutally demolished them. But you want to talk about, but you don't want to talk. You want to talk about Crimea?
Yeah, and now then let's get to
okay.
And then before Crimea, I think it's more important. So in 2012 and 2013, there was a Putin ally that became the president of Ukraine.
Right.
And then he won
democratically.
Exactly.
Allegedly.
Right. We don't really know. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first election was super duper close, and then there were riots, and we have to redo the election because this was a disaster.
Right.
So then they redid the election, and it was pretty apparent. And again, I wasn't there, but apparently it was apparent that the Putin ally had won.
Yeah.
So now he's the president. And then apparently a year or two later, Soros-backed people and all they started doing this thing where they fund these protests.
Right.
And they're trying to fund protests, and they're trying to find ways in order to keep the protesters there through the holidays and stuff like it's like a business of protesting.
Right.
And then all these
And the Americans were involved in
crazy.
that too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then all these Nazi people who weren't pro-Putin, they're pro-Nazi, came to Kiev in order to support ousting this Putin ally who was the president. And then people like Vitaly Klitschko and all the governors and stuff that are there now from Odessa and from Western Ukraine all teamed up with the Nazi people and the professional protester people in order to create so much craziness that this guy would resign or the city would be lit on fire.
And it was a coup, right? It was a coup.
Kind of like a coup by protest.
Right. So they deposed this pro-Russia guy who allegedly, as far as we know, was elected. And meanwhile, culturally, big portions of eastern Ukraine had remained Russian. I mean, it had gone back and forth. They spoke Russian.
Right, especially those two states all the way there and Crimea.
Crimea and Donbass, that other region there. They were very kind of Russian. So there was some pro-Russia sentiment. And so the United States clearly was involved in facilitating, funding, supporting, and fomenting what ultimately became this coup to depose this guy.
You can't even say that. John McCain and Democrats and other, I think, I forget who, but it was
Lindsey Graham was there, I think.
Yes, Lindsey Graham. That's what I'm saying. Republicans and Democrats and high-ranking officials in our government were there at the protests.
Yes. We support you. We support you.
Right. And on the front row of them saying we support you are these literal Nazis.
Yeah.
What are they called?
Oh, it's like something brigade.
Yeah, the black helmets or the red brigade or something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy because I think the national security state, the permanent national security state in the United States and globally, it has an interest in always maintaining. They have this obsession with restraining Russia and Russia expansion,
right,
vis-a-vis NATO and Western Europe, but also having the ability to always have a war on demand. Because having a war on demand is critically important strategically.
Right, especially for the industrial complex.
Right. But also they saw Ukraine as it's a curse to be one of these countries that's at a strategic crossroads.
Like Turkey, Afghanistan, Ukraine, where you're on this kind of... Between the Far East and the Middle East, and it's the connector.
It's a curse for these countries.
Right.
I mean, look at these countries. But that's where Ukraine finds itself. So as a consequence of that, yes. So they kicked out that pro-Russian president, and they installed this pro-West, allegedly pro-EU.
Pro-West, right.
Somebody with NATO aspirations.
Right, and now we're looking back, it's more like pro-New World Order as opposed to pro-Western value.
Right. I mean, so that was what I think 2013, 14.
Right, and then my question is, that's when Joe Biden's vice president.
Yes.
Now, when is it that Hunter goes over there and starts getting on the board of Burisma? And when is it that we start opening up these biological labs? Because all this stuff that's going on today didn't happen yesterday.
Right.
I mean, all this stuff, the bio labs, you talk about Hunter Biden. Yeah. I don't remember the date. I don't know if that was 2018 or that was 2014. But now every single, I think, a bunch of other politicians' kids also work in Ukraine and they're on boards in Ukraine.
It's so corrupt. But in 2014, that's when Russia invaded Crimea, right? In violation.
Well, that's my question. Did they invade?
Oh, or they invited? You're saying?
Right.
Okay.
I'm asking. I'm not trying to defend Putin. Just so you guys know.
I've heard that as well. But it doesn't matter if they had made an agreement not to enter the country, and if the people invite them and they come in, it's still in violation of it. Right. Because we're the other party.
Right.
So we didn't sign off on that, right? I mean, the Russians might have asked for it. I mean, the Ukrainians allegedly could have asked for it in Crimea, but the United States didn't sign off on it. So that would still be in violation of the memorandum.
According to international law, and you're the man to ask.
So that would be a violation. So Putin did violate that, and that could be used as a basis for us for sanctions. We haven't heard about it against Russia now. But then the labs and all that stuff, it's crazy. I mean, we have this chemical weapons convention of like 1975, right? That prevents the use, prohibits the development of chemical weapons by all these signatory countries. Ukraine is a signatory country. I think there's like 183 signatory countries.
Right.
The United States certainly is.
Right, there's only like 210 countries in the world. So if
Right.
180 sign it, that means, we're missing Zimbabwe or something.
Right. Well, it could be China. It could be
Guam.
Guam. I don't know. But no, I think China's in it. I think China's in it.
I would say China's a much bigger fish than Guam.
Yeah. So that convention prohibits, the use of development of offensive or military purposes of chemical weapons. So what they always say is when they're developing these biological research, endeavors, they say, look, it's for defense of if there's an outbreak. To the extent that there's an outbreak, so what they have to do necessarily to figure out how to defend against the outbreak is they have to invent the outbreak.
Have the outbreak. Right. Otherwise, how are we going to fight it?
Yeah. So we have these U.S.-funded biolabs, and a lot of them. There's like
Right.
20 of them or something like that.
Right. So first I heard 1 or 2, and then I heard like 11 or 13. Now I'm hearing 26 to 28 of them.
Yeah, and just the same flavor of what was going on in Wuhan. We were funding that lab.
Right.
So this is getting eerily, deja
And
vu.
is it just not a biological weapon because it's not on the head of a nuclear? Not on the head of a missile.
It's
like if we put it on the head of a missile, it's a biological weapon.
Well, it's
right?
semantic. I mean, it's like if you use a shotgun to hunt quail, it's not a weapon. You're gathering food with
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's
Right.
an instrument to harvest your food.
Right. If you're going to hold up a bank, it's still a tool, but a little more malicious.
Right. So I mean, again, so there's so much corruption. There's so much involvement by it's the uniparty, the deep state, the security state, but a lot of it now, since the Biden administration, Rosemont Seneca, Hunter Biden's investment vehicle in Ukraine, had been funding a lot of these biolabs and the development of these biolabs. So we are left as the American people now with all this background, all this history, all these big moving parts. And we're not permitted, once again, just like COVID or anything else, to think about, consider, deliberate, hear about, talk about. If you're talking,
Right.
the number one clue.
That's what I'm trying to do now is talk to you
Yeah.
about it. I don't know if we're going to even get in trouble for this.
No, the number one clue that you're being set up is if they say, shut up, don't talk about it, don't think about it. You must do this or you're a traitor or you're
Right.
disloyal or you're some kind of
Like
savage.
a vaccine.
Yeah, or whatever, vaccine. And that's what they're doing. And what I think they want to do is get us into World War III. I really looks like
They're succeeding.
they're getting us there into World War III, and it's a perfect vehicle to
Bring in the new normal.
Well, yeah, war is a permanent emergency situation. All these ambitionist, authoritarian dictatorship regimes or Marxist regimes always use emergency. Even the Third Reich did it too.
Right.
They always use an emergency situation to implement and whatever it is that they want. Then they never relinquish the power.
Exactly. So you take COVID and then you throw in World War III. We're going to overhaul our economy. We're going to change gas prices from now on are going to be $10 a gallon. We're going to produce planes and bombs and tanks and this, that, the other thing. And then the war will end, however horrible that may be. And now we have to reset. Well, what are we going to reset with? Don't open up that carburetor plant because that uses gas. Open up that battery plant. Don't open up this car plant. Open up this Tesla plant.
Right.
And they can now implement everything from a fresh start.
Well, and when it comes to the green, exactly. And I was going to talk about the green economy, but you're absolutely right.
Well, it's the same thing.
No,
Go ahead.
I just want to say, you're absolutely right. And another thing that they're going to reset too, not just economically, but global financial system is another thing that they want to reset as well. So, the sovereign currencies, to the extent you're able to have cash, it gives you anonymity. I mean, if you have cash, you can deal in cash and you have anonymity. So that's an obstacle to the implementation of authoritarianism. In order to have because right now we basically live in an existence of turnkey authoritarianism. Every decision you make, everything you say online, even not online, everything that we're saying right now is being recorded by our phones.
Right.
Maybe it's not being looked at by a human.
Maybe or maybe not.
We don't know.
But I'm sure they have the ability to.
They have the ability
you're
to.
running for Congress.
Yeah.
And you're a pretty outspoken dude.
Yeah.
If they're going to pick
They might
10,000 people to listen to, you're probably on that list.
And we already know the NSA.
You're one of the scariest Republicans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm probably on. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. So I'm probably on a list. Our phones listen to everything they say, anything we post on social media. Every medical healthcare decision we make goes through an insurance company. It's online. The doctors, every purchasing decision you make with a financial institution, every travel decision you make, every time you buy gas with a credit card, everything you do, there's cameras everywhere.
Right.
We live in turnkey authoritarianism. That means the government, if it were to exercise control and say, you can do this, but not that, they would be able to do it. All they need is an excuse.
They just canceled. they canceled, in the past 2 years or 4 years, they canceled two of the most powerful people in the world. Donald Trump was canceled. The leader of the free world, the president of the United States, was canceled. Now a whole country is canceled.
Yes. It's great.
They're canceling countries.
Yeah, isn't that insane?
And I'm not saying Russia is deserving of our sympathy. The people, I believe, are. And Russia might have some sort of, they could 100% deserve it. But the fact that they could do it, they could cancel a country.
Yeah. And they knew that was going to happen.
They canceled the Canadian truckers.
They canceled all the people who gave money to them. They froze their financial assets. That's why cryptocurrency until the security state establishes their own cryptocurrency that they can control, or one with a backdoor, the digital dollar, or the yuan, the Chinese version. They're going to ban. They're going to track down and ban anything that gives. They're going to give anything that gives you freedom or independence, whether it's a VPN, whether it's distributed, anything that's peer to peer, anything that's financial transactions, anything that's barter, anything
a gas-powered car,
anything that gives you freedom or independence from the state is going to be resisted or crushed. Right now, the dominant tension right now, the most relevant tension, is not Republican Democrat, it's not conservative liberal. Johnny, it's freedom versus authoritarianism. Across all cultures and all nations.
Right.
That's really what it is. It's about freedom. It's about the...
And that's why I hate this talk about Ukraine. We're talking about socialism versus communism, or we're talking about New World Order authoritarian versus Old World Order authoritarian. And I don't want nothing to do with either side.
There's an off-ramp right now. This tells you everything you need to know, okay? Putin trying to get into Kiev and circle and secure Kiev, right? He says, look, we'll get out if you give us Donbass, the other region, let us keep Crimea, and you amend your constitution to guarantee that you'll stay neutral, won't join NATO. And I think he added that we have a new president who is it?
Not Zelensky.
Right. So why not? Why is the United States not trying to facilitate that resolution?
Right.
It costs us nothing.
And with that said, if they were to take Crimea, the two states over there, I think they want some of that southern hook, so that way they can't go inside those mountains. You probably know the region better than me. But if they were to take those places, which are pro-Russian anyway, if they elected a new president, it wouldn't be a pro-Russian president, because you already took 10-20% of the pro-Russia people out of the equation.
Right.
So Ukraine will be a Western democracy. And Zelensky, I mean, he's a comedian. I commend his bravery for staying in town. But at the same time, I don't trust him. I don't think that he's the savior. Some of these people talk about Zelensky like he's a Winston Churchill. Give me a flipping break.
He's not working for the Ukrainian people. He's working on behalf of some. He's an asset. He's an asset of somebody else. Right. But I just don't understand, why are not the global powers, why aren't the Chinese, the Americans trying to facilitate a resolution, that's some diplomatic resolution where we figure out, look, we'll come to this agreement or this agreement. But the fighting, they want to prolong the fighting forever. Right. You've got Republicans on TV
talking about the no-fly zone.
The no-fly zone, which is combat.
I know.
Don't fall for it.
I'm
not you. I know, not you.
Look at them then.
No, not you.
Not you either.
Don't fall for it. It's a trap, folks. It's a trap. It's a setup, okay? It's a perfect scapegoat for what's going to shortly be $7, $9, $10 gallon gas, which is going to happen. Like, that's the direction we're headed in.
We're already at 5. I mean, we're already at 5. Yeah. This thing is it's been a week. Maybe really, 2 weeks.
It underscores the two important points of international relations, basically. One is that in international relations, weakness is provocation.
Right, 100.
And number 2, in international relations, the heart of national security is energy independence. Those are two important takeaways, which we already knew.
That's so profound, and that's what we get away from. That's wisdom.
We knew that.
That's truth.
Yeah.
That's what we need to have our concentration on. And like you said earlier, also, if we are America first and America last, that's good for the world. I mean, no matter what, it keeps Putin in check. It keeps China in check. It makes it, at this point, right now, at this minute, is the most vulnerable we've ever been.
Yeah, I'll say this. I don't even have to go out on a limb and say categorically that it's good for the world, for the United States, to be the global superpower. But I will say this: it's better than the two immediate alternatives. One of which is to have China be the global superpower, which is manifestly an authoritarian police state of Marxist. The 1.4 billion people who live there, 4 times the population of the United States, have zero freedoms. Okay, they're control. There's only less than 1% of the population is a member of the Communist Party. They exercise complete 100% total control of these people. Every aspect of their lives, medical decisions, parental rights, where you go to school, what your job's going to be, what you can earn, what you can say. There's no freedom whatsoever. That's the model that is being rolled out globally. That's why we have attacks on Canada, Australia, Western Europe, and the United States, because these are the obstacles to the implementation of authoritarianism globally. The historically free liberal democracies of the West, Western civilization, led by the United States, is the main primary obstacle to the implementation of global authoritarianism. That's why we're the subject of, the focus of all these attacks. Look at Australia, look at Canada.
Australia and Canada scare the living crap out of me.
Right.
Seeing them go through what they're going through. And then if you're saying I'm going to live under this New World Order authoritarian thing, I would rather it be a religious thing where we're all like, you know,
theocracy. Yeah,
I mean, I don't want that at all.
I don't want that either.
I'm just saying, I would rather that than the whole, you know, everybody, you know, let's give 5-year-old boys genetic treatment so that way they could grow boobs. I mean, like it's
crazy.
And then you need a law to tell people not to do that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely the destruction of the family. I mean, everything that the Marxist globalists have been. And by the way, this Marxism that's being pushed under the guise of wokeism and all that stuff, that is a religion. It's practiced like religion. There's priests and priestesses.
But I don't think they're into that. I don't think Rockefeller and Soros and all these guys who aren't even in the news anymore because they like to keep under the radar. I don't think they're into the anti-racism crap. I don't think they're into the LGBTQ movement. I don't think they're into the no God in school. I think they're just into hysteria. They just want the craziness. They want everybody to hate each other, and they think, let's get people that go against this modus operandi so people feel uncomfortable, and that stirs up.
Two things you said are fundamentally and profoundly true. So they're not authentic adherents to these ideologies, right? They see them as a means to an end. So if you're the globalist, right, you don't care what the ideology. It could be Islam, it could be Marxism, it could be communism, or it could be wokeism. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it leads to authoritarianism. all of those end up at authoritarianism. Now,
we don't care who's at war.
Yeah.
It could be Ukraine and Russia, it could be America and China, as long as there's a war.
Yeah. The other thing you said is order out of chaos, right? Okay, order out of chaos, which is the motivating principle. You know, you have antithesis. You have the Hegelian dialectic, right, where you have, you know, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Okay, it's order out of chaos. So basically, what they do is they exploit and foment division, unrest, and disorder in order to provide a solution that advances their cause of authoritarianism and accumulates power to themselves. But the fertile ground that enables you to do that as an authoritarianism is to create unrest, chaos, insecurity, anxiety, fear, and then
suffering,
and suffering, and then you can provide a solution. And your solution is going to be, it's only going to be for you. It's going to be your benefit.
Right. And the problem lies when some Canadian truckers start to use your tactics against you.
Right.
They got to shut that down.
Yeah. So we're seeing naked authoritarianism now because one of the dynamics that's at play right now is there's more of us than there are of them. So they rely critically on misinformation, disinformation, propaganda narrative because they have to keep us under control. They can't control us by force yet. They're not quite there. But they control us through self-censorship, bullying, intimidation, information warfare, propaganda. Okay? So that means that's why they so aggressively fight what they call misinformation, disinformation, right? They fight it because if that's the truth, by the way. But if the truth gets ahead of the propaganda narrative, the whole thing on their end could collapse.
It's like a house of cards.
There's too many of us. They can't arrest us all today. They have to wait until...
Right, but we don't do that. We don't do that. Like, everybody didn't say, I'm not wearing a mask anymore.
That's right.
Everybody was like, no, I'll just wear the stupid mask, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, my kids ain't going to wear a mask at school. All right, just put the mask on and hopefully it'll be over soon. And I'm not going to pay my taxes. Well, no, actually, I'm going to pay my tax.
That's right.
Like we don't ever really, and it's going to be too late soon.
You know what, Johnny? You're so right. You know, we're on borrowed time now. We're a day late and $1 short. But the thought is, this is what they always try to encourage. Look, just do this one thing. It's incrementalism.
Right. They're not going to blast you off into Nazism.
No, they say, look, hey, you know what? If you do this, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. If you do this, it'll go away. Things will go back to normal. So they induce you through incrementalism to engage in these small steps. And the other thing is, that's what we do. Then before long, it's too late. Because and the bottom line is, folks need to understand at some point is, take a step back, look at the big picture, look at the trends, look at globally what's going on, and remember, you can't comply your way out of authoritarianism. You can't comply your way.
It's never gonna work.
It doesn't work.
Eventually, you have to say enough is enough.
Yeah, but you have to do it critically before it's too late, because there's a tipping point, a threshold beyond which
that they have enough power that they won't be able to. We won't be able to take it from them.
And we're almost there.
I agree.
We're almost there. Because you
It's
saw
like right there.
You saw it in Australia's beyond it.
Right.
Canada's probably beyond it.
Right.
The United States may save the world again, like it has.
But that's your point. Is here's Australia, here's Canada, and here's us. And we know that Australia and Canada are beyond the line.
Right.
So that means the line is here, and we're approaching it.
Right.
I mean, it can't, and we are so far behind.
Let me just have one
Go
thing
ahead,
about
go
Russia.
ahead, go ahead.
What's going to happen, I predict, Johnny. There's a couple things we have to say before we get off your
Go
brain.
for it.
What I see is going to happen.
We're going to have to bring it back because forget it.
Well, your big picture point about creating unrest and disorder, okay? The whole World War III scenario that's unfolding before our eyes is the way it's going to unfold for disorder is Russia and Ukraine together supply 25% of the world's wheat.
Right.
Okay, huge massive portions of northern Africa and Southeast Asia get their wheat from Ukraine and Russia. Okay, so you and I are old enough to remember like Live Aid and remember all that stuff?
Oh, Hands Across America.
Yeah. So we're gonna see another famine, another food crisis. It's gonna lead to a refugee crisis. Like we had the refugee crisis in Europe, massive movement of refugees into Europe again, which they're gonna be shamed into taking regardless.
Except for Hungary.
Yeah, well, Hungary, we'll see. But it's going to create a massive, and if we get to this no-fly zone, Russia will retaliate, not militarily against the United States.
I'm afraid of cyber warfare.
Cyber attack, which will plunge us into darkness. Not an EMP, but that's a possibility.
But that would. I mean, yes.
So it'll be a cyber attack. Who knows who's going to carry it out, but it'll be blamed on the Russians. Right. Then we'll be at war. That's all it's going to take. We said it. I said it here on Johnny Brew.
And I just want to say, hey, Putin, if you're going to do a cyber attack, wipe out my debt. And what were you saying more seriously?
No, that's it. So that's going to be now we're going to say, look, they've attacked us. It's cyber attack. That's an act of war. I mean, economic sanctions technically aren't.
Well, what about the pipeline on the East Coast less than a year ago?
That's right. They shut down allegedly, and the pork production thing, the whole food thing, and all that stuff. So the cyber attack is where it's going to be. It's going to be a retaliatory cyber attack, and we're going to say they shut down the critical infrastructure of the United States. It's an act of war. Now we have to go to war. And Biden's already said, if they attack a NATO ally, we're going to get in. But this is a foregone conclusion. The globalists and the folks who are in control and the media is running cover for it and fomenting it. They're trying to gin up popular support for this war that provides cover for the massive inflation, supply constraints, massive prices, commodity prices, everything that's going on. They need this World War III, Johnny, and I think that's where we're headed. That's why we need veterans in office.
Unless we could turn the country red and put an end to this hysteria.
Well, you're right. I wish that were just true about just being right or not, because half the people who are calling for war are Republicans.
Right.
You know what I mean? We need people who actually have been in war and understand it's not really fun. Like, you don't want it. I mean,
it's not fun, and you heard it here first, guys. War is not fun, and you do not want it.
You don't want it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I wanted to say something else. You get me all fired up. All right, let's go back. So you became a lawyer. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you lived in Boston, Northern Virginia, also Irvine, Texas.
Oh, California.
California. What were you doing there?
Working as a patent attorney.
Yeah. And is that where you came up with your new idea for? I think it's roof racks.
Yes.
What's so special about your roof rack?
Yeah, no, it's a really cool idea. So, the problem I have, and a lot of people have, I was in Orange County. I might take my son surfing in the morning before school. At a school, you have a surf club, right? So we would go, all the dads would go. And it's just like a pain in the ass putting it up there in the car, right? Especially if you have an SUV.
Right.
I mean, I'm not as tall as you, but I'm pretty tall.
Yeah.
But it's still hard. and a lot of people can't do it. And if it's a bike,
Right.
you can't do it. So I thought we need a roof rack that extends and allows you and permits you to load it and slide it back up. So I invented this novel design, which is patent pending, two patent families, where it extends. It's very elegant. It's
Right.
low profile. It actually looks better than a regular roof rack, but it just slides down effortlessly and glides down. There's no clunkiness to
Right,
it.
just boom, boom, put the bike on,
Yeah,
and then you could boom, boom, right back up top.
And it's not even hinged. It actually just glides perfectly on an arc. And you load it up, and then you just slide it back up, and it locks into place. So that's my roof rack company that we developed here. We got a grant
I
from.
like that idea.
Thank you. Yeah, we got a grant from the Governor's Office of Economic Development right here in Nevada. Big grant to develop the technology at UNLV, which we've been doing over the course of at least a
I
year.
took students on a field trip there to see the whole engineering department. They got a lot of nice facilities, especially in that new building,
Yes.
the new engineering building.
It's beautiful, and that's where we do all our work. I got a big machine down there that makes the tubes and stuff.
Oh,
So
you still work down there?
what we do, we've with the campaign. We've been focused on the
Busy,
campaign.
right.
This Ukraine war thing is a bigger situation.
Well,
than
I don't
roof
have
rack.
any connects there anymore. Can you get me and my
Yeah.
students in
Oh,
there?
yeah,
All right.
I think I still have a faculty. I think I'm still on the faculty over there.
So you could just bring us there.
Yeah.
Except
I-
it's
yeah.
stupid campaign.
Yeah,
You're going to have
yeah.
to find a Tuesday morning that you could entertain a bunch of 8th graders.
Oh yeah, we'll bring them down. We'll show them the roof rack, show them the lab. It's incredible.
yeah, that's what I want to see.
Yeah. So and technically I was a faculty member for that, or staff member, or
Advisor, something.
something like that. Yeah, I was leading a group of engineering students, seniors, and when I was an engineering student, mechanical engineering student. When I was a senior, I won the best senior project award at mechanical engineering faculty at Boston University. So I entered these guys into, they entered my project
Right.
as their project
Right.
for the senior design competition, and they actually won the People's Choice Award with the work that they did on this.
Right.
These amazing students, 6 different students we had, seniors who were just incredible engineers. Now they've gone around, they have amazing jobs, but we wanted to expose them to startup culture. It's not just the engineering aspect, but product design.
And it wasn't a robot or a roller coaster.
No,
it was like a practical idea.
Yeah, a recreational product, a consumer product, but it
Right.
goes back to diversifying the economy too. Because I want in Nevada, because I want to build these, design these locally here, manufacture them
Right.
in Nevada.
But I just think the lesson for the seniors at UNLV is you could come up with a stupid idea over a stupid roof rack,
Right.
and you could change the world. You could get lots of money that could lead to other businesses. And, like I said, they're all thinking about building roller coasters and go-karts, you know
Right.
what I mean? But when you think practically, can you make a better water bottle? Can you make a better roof
Just
rack?
anything that could be improved. Like anytime you're doing something and you're like, it's
Right,
a
it
little
would
bit
be
annoying.
nicer if
If
it worked
was
like
better.
this.
Yeah, that's an industry or a market that's ripe for disruption. Like roof racks haven't changed in 50 years.
And that's something, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought of this two other times and I forgot about it. When we talk about energy independence, I feel like we don't have enough of a emphasis on innovation.
Right.
We're trying to stuff a round windmill into a square hole of getting off of fossil fuels. It's not working.
Right.
Instead of trying to force us into wind or solar or something that's really not, efficient, we need to be working on innovation, and that's where capitalism comes in, and that's where not having a tyrannical means of production run by the state type of thing works.
Right.
We should be sinking our money, just like we sink our money into solving, curing cancer, we should be sinking money into research of energy production.
Yeah.
I heard there's a fission plant in China.
Wow.
Which, nuclear, no, we use nuclear fission. Nuclear fusion is
cold
what
fusion,
happens
yeah.
on the sun.
Right.
And they have a mini artificial sun in China right now,
Wow.
where they're trying to use, where you could produce exponentially more energy than the nuclear fission that we do at our nuclear power plants now, and that's innovation. And that sounds pretty dangerous and scary. I don't know how safe it is what they're doing. They're getting
Right.
it up to temperatures of like 20 million degrees Fahrenheit or something.
That's insane. I mean, my energy policy is everything and all. So we should be investing in natural gas, hydrocarbon, petroleum, crude. We should be investing in electric. All the technologies that exist, we need to be pushing them all, but we need to be fundamentally energy independent. And when you look at what we did in Afghanistan, for example, with the $1 trillion of rare earth elements, the single largest concentration of rare earth elements, the fuel or the hydrocarbons of the green economy, if you will, outside of China existed in Afghanistan. It was mapped out by the U.S. Geological Survey in 2012. It was worth at least $1 trillion. China already controls 99% of the market, 97% of the market globally in rare earth elements, which is the new fuel.
Right, the new gold.
The new gold, yeah. That we had control of that in Afghanistan. We just gave it to the Chinese.
Along with $80 billion worth of military equipment to protect it?
Yeah, we created the largest terrorist army in the world. The largest, I think they have a bigger arm, like more, well equipped. And where do you think all that technology went? Iran, China. The Taliban can't operate that equipment. It's high. You know how?
Right. It's like when they find our helicopters, they don't know how to fly them, and they're looking it up on YouTube. How do I launch a Black Hawk helicopter?
And they'll be able to fly it one time, and the maintenance they can't perform. So the only thing they can do is sell
the parts.
Give it to China or Iran. So this is all we've done. I mean, this is the biggest black eye foreign policy blunder and humiliation of my lifetime, from the Biden administration up until the most recent one. And I think he set us back generations, but I think it's intentional. I think
right. I mean, it's either extreme incompetence or it's nefarious.
It can't be extreme incompetence. I refuse to believe that's implausible.
Have you heard Biden or Kamala give a speech in the last week?
I've heard Kamala give a couple of speeches that made me want to turn off the TV because I was cringing. I was so embarrassed.
But she's in charge of our country. I mean, I know she's the vice president, and that's kind of like a picture, on the wall. They don't really have a job, but no, she's running our country.
Well, no,
so is Biden.
She's legitimately the point person for the border and for Ukraine.
Right, the two worst things that have happened to us,
Yeah, it's absolutely.
But we got to keep doing what we're doing the way we've been doing it, and the time is now to do that.
I know.
I know. I said it a little bit more coherently than she even said.
Oh yeah, no. She said this. She said, "Now is the time to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day."
Gold. That's foreign policy for you. Yeah. All right, I was gonna make fun of you on your newscast doing the pro bono project, but we don't have time.
Okay.
I did want to ask you about working with that, doing some liberal causes. You're a big MAGA guy. You're a build a wall guy, but you were helping people pro bono with immigration problems and stuff like that. You want to address some of those concerns?
Well, to me, it's not a concern. I'm very proud of that. It's one of the proudest professional achievements that I've had. I worked with an incredible group of professionals. Barbara Buckley, the director over there, is a professional mentor of mine, first female speaker of the assembly in Nevada, Democrat, but really fantastic woman. I think pro bono work is incredible. As a conservative, I think we ought to be compassionate. Right. These people need to be able to access justice. The most marginalized members of our community, the most vulnerable members of our community, foster kids, survivors to sex trafficking, domestic violence. They can't afford attorneys. We would go out and get attorneys who are $500, $600, $700, $800 an hour. We get them to volunteer their time representing a 9-year-old girl who's trying to
getting her the best
representation. So to me, it's one of the I've done a lot of things. I served as an international law attorney. Right. I got law degrees. I got law degrees from 2 countries. I forgot to tell you, I went to law school in Germany too.
Really?
Yeah. But I've worked as a patent attorney at top firms. But that work to me was one of the proudest things I got to do. And I don't understand this idea, like, how can you do that as a conservative? I think it's, as a Christian, as a citizen, as a father, as a husband, as someone who loves his community, I'm proud of that work. And the other thing too is, I'm a conservative, but I'm a civil libertarian. 100%. That's what's under assault right now. Is our civil liberties, parental rights.
And I want to volunteer to do good. I don't want the government to take my money and do good.
That's what we did.
And I am all for strict homelessness laws and stuff like that. And let's get them. I'm not against social worker. We can get them help, but we have to have strict laws. I want to be strict with the homeless.
Right.
At the same time, I go and I feed the homeless sometimes.
Right.
And I know some conservatives don't think that's, you're just enabling them. You go there and you feed them, and then they think you. And I understand their point. But I also had a student. I'm a staunch against illegal immigration, right? Yeah. I had a student in high school once who was going to go see an immigration attorney, a judge, because they might get deported because they came over illegally.
Right.
I am all for building a wall and shutting off illegal immigration.
Yeah.
But that kid was my student, and I coached him, saying, listen, talk to the judge, tell him you love this country. I was trying to help him stay, personally and government policy, it's two different things. Me as a Christian over here,
there you go.
And me as a government advisor over here is two different things.
It's two different things. It's absolutely encapsulates the whole entire thing. Democrats and liberals think they want to be generous with your money.
Right.
Whereas as Christians and conservatives, we want to be generous with our own time, resources, and money. But I'm all for asylum for people who are entitled to asylum. We need that's the kind of work I did.
Like the Cubans 6 to 9 months ago.
Yes.
That they were shoved away.
And they were turning away Ukrainians coming in at the southern border.
You know why? Because they're anti-communism, anti-tyranny.
Right. But for immigration, for me, I'm 100% about closing all elective immigration, shutting it down, except for asylum until the wall is complete. 100% against, I think we should repeal birthright citizenship. I think we should pass a law to get rid of birthright citizenship.
Right, because the world's too small.
Well,
when we got around on boats, that was a great idea.
Yeah, but only 25% of the countries in the world have birthright citizenship anyway, and it's not constitutionally guaranteed. We need to get rid of birthright citizenship, and we have to start enforcing the immigration laws. We already have the books.
But what about we had like 4 million people. I mean, they used to say, oh, there's only 11 million illegal immigrants. Yeah. I could have sworn that there's at least 30 million.
I think so too.
Just in the past year, it's been another 6 million.
You know what? We don't even know, but they say 220,000 encounters per month. That's encounters, which is limited by the number of dudes on the ground who the CBP guys, right?
I hear the swaths of unattended parts of the border that they're not. And I used to hear that gotaways were like twice the encounters. Right. Like the encounters were 200,000, the gotaways were 200,000. That might have changed. Maybe it's only 50%, but still you're talking about 300,000 people a month.
At least. I mean, so we don't really know. I would say that the population, illegal immigrant population in the United States could at least be 10% residential.
That's what I've said, 10%.
10% could be 15%.
But more than that, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
What do we do?
We absolutely have to we have to close the immigration process, but I think we have to deport people who are illegally.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, at some point.
Yeah, you have to deport. I mean, it's too much. And I'm saying deport them, and then this is my plan. Okay, we close the border. We allow asylum for people who need it, but we close the border, and then we say, look, if you're here illegally, we're going to give you a period of time. We'll give you 6 months, a year, and you go out back to your country of origin, and you can apply. Okay, but if you don't do it, and we have to commit resources and put agents in harm's way, we have to commit federal money, my tax dollars, my kids' tax dollars, to chasing you down, potentially getting shot and deporting you. If we deport you, if you're here after that 1 year, you can never come back.
Right.
And you can't get a visa.
Right.
You can't come back at all.
Right. Because you got to have some sympathy for the illegal immigrant who was invited here by this administration. I mean, you can't throw them in jail for the rest of their life. They're going to be like, wait, the president before this guy invited me here.
It's an interesting point. It's not inviting. It's a tacit permission. But the reality is, it's still breaking the law. Right. I mean, the law is the law.
No, and I'm not saying they should go off scot-free either. I'm just saying it's a delicate situation.
I know
because
it's a shame.
They were kind of invited.
Well, it was like basically they wink, wink, nod, nod. We won't do anything.
Right.
Now's the time to come. But it's against the law, federal law.
Right.
And you break the law at your own peril. I mean, I don't. This,
right, like jaywalking. The cops aren't ever going to give you a ticket for jaywalk, but they could.
They could. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, "Oh, you never gave me one before." I mean. So I really think we need strict and border enforcement, absolutely, and we need to enforce laws on the books. That means employers, Johnny, E-Verify, employers can't be employing people. And the public charge rule needs to be enforced, and the rule against public health for people who come into at risk.
Right. I mean, on our infrastructure. Yeah, right. Infrastructure. Mm-hmm. What about our hospitals? What about our roads? What about our jails? What about our social services?
Right.
Do you remember we used to go like 3 hours with people? We're not even halfway through the first page, and I'm out of time. All right, so we're going to skip your pro bono project. We already talked about engineer, investor, business owner, father. I wanted to talk about, we're like out of time. I wanted to talk about all the platforms you want to talk about, from abortion to China. You talked about Millie. Mm-hmm. You've got national headlines. Right. You're one of the scariest Republicans out there.
Yeah.
You were on veterans in politics. You talked about hanging people for treason. And I was going to say, in order to keep it legit, instead of saying, pitchforks and
Yeah.
mobs, let's hang them. What is the law?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
but we don't have time. We
Okay.
don't have the CRT, Second Amendment, COVID emergency powers. Viewers' questions.
Yeah.
All right. Ian was saying, at what point are we going to hold our elected representatives accountable for the inaction that is tantamount to treason towards the U.S.? And I believe he's talking about the inaction of enforcing the laws at our border.
Yep.
Or the inaction of, not saving the people in Afghanistan that was supposed to come here. Stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've already drafted articles of impeachment for Biden. One of the things in there is this border thing, okay? Because they have a duty as the executive branch to faithfully execute the laws that are passed by Congress, okay? So there's a duty to actually, they've decided whole cloth to say we're going to pick a whole portion of a federal statute. We're just not going to do it. In fact, we're, like you said, we're going to tacitly invite them to break the law.
Right. It ties into what we were just saying.
At great cost to the American families and businesses, which is treason. To me, let's just say this.
We haven't convicted somebody of treason since 1961.
Right, and this wouldn't be a conviction. I'm saying
Or executed somebody for treason.
you're right, the Army. But I'm saying, this would be for impeachment, though. So we're not talking criminal penalties. Now, when it comes to Milley, that is a criminal offense. For Biden, I'm saying we impeach him for it. We impeach him for it, which he's just kicked out.
Abdication of duty.
He's out of office, based on treason.
But then what happens? We get Kamala?
Well, you have to impeach them both. So
Then what happens? We get Pelosi?
No, it wouldn't be Pelosi because we have the election. So
so you want to get elected, then you
we-
could be the Speaker of the House.
Well, I won't be the Speaker.
And then you could be president, bro.
yeah,
In like 6 months?
yeah, that's my plan.
That's All right. Chris says, if you lose, will you stay active and run again?
Yes,
You're in it.
yes.
So if you were to lose in the primary, or if you win the primary, you lose the general election, you're going to run right back up that hill in 24 until you could implement the change that you want to see.
I have to. The stakes that we're facing right now as a country are so high that as a father, what kind of father would I be if I didn't do everything I could? Even having a platform as a candidate, getting out there, spreading news, spreading information, spreading truth, encouraging people, getting people engaged in the process, encouraging people to support candidates who are America First and veterans. That, to me, is the best use of my time right now as a father, because I think everything is at stake, Johnny. Everything.
Right. I do too. Yeah. That's why I started the show, And, God bless you for having that answer, because, right now you even started, you might not have heard of me, but hey, you get, I wish you the best of luck. Yeah, you're a great patriot. I'd love to see you on Capitol Hill, in January or February of next year. But if you don't, say you get 30% of the vote and you're the runner-up in the Republican primary, now you got name recognition and run for the same office, the same time, and say, I'm going to do it right this time. Unless, of course, you lose in the primary and we get a Republican who does the most amazing job ever.
Right.
Then maybe you just go to CD1 or something.
Well, yeah, and I don't know what the next.
But you're in it.
I really want to do everything I can for not just my kids, but all the kids. And really, this country that I love, that I see, getting destroyed before our eyes.
All right, the last thing I'm going to ask you about.
Yeah.
Susie Lee has raised $2.4 million. Mm-hmm. April Becker has raised $800,000. Mark Robertson, $300,000. John Kovacs even $280,000. Then we have you at $180,000. Are you polling in that same order? And do you think that you can win this in June? Just 2 months away.
I definitely think we can win. Mark's, of course, out of the race now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mark Robertson is in
He's in one.
CD1 now.
Yeah, and
I can't get
that's
that
okay.
straight. I interviewed him. Do you know? One time on the Johnny Brew Show, I interviewed someone, put it in my pocket, waited a week, and released it the next week so I could take a vacation.
Yeah.
That was the week that they did redistricting, and Mark Robertson advertised for CD3 all the time, and then he changed. So I'm sorry about that.
But that's okay.
But anyway.
I do think I can win. Really, to me, it's about what I campaign for is votes. Of course, we need money to get raise our profile. But if you look at me, particularly compared to, for example, April, right?
Right.
I'm out there talking about the issues, exactly what I believe on every single issue, so you can hold me accountable. As a voter, that's what I look for in candidates. I want to know what you stand for, and I want to know you're not going to change on me. I don't want to speculate about what you stand for and then find out I was wrong when you get to office, right? Because 9 times out of 10, that's going to work against me, because you're going to go with some interest that's not in line with my interest and my kids' interest. So I take a stand by going down the line in every particular issue and giving my detailed platform position, which we didn't get to hit all of them, but we do another time.
Right, you're going to have to come back. I mean, this was a great conversation.
No, we'll come back. But so I'm looking for votes. That's what wins. I mean, it's great to have $800,000 in the bank, but if it doesn't translate into a vote, it doesn't matter.
And I'm new to this, but they say money translates to votes.
It can. You can use it for votes. And you can use it to try to. All you can do is raise awareness about yourself. But if you're not a compelling candidate, you could.
Right. I mean, you can spend
an infinite amount of money, and we've seen this happen.
And then also we have Clark Bossert, who's going to be on the show tomorrow.
Right.
You have any tough questions for Clark?
I think Clark's a great guy. I really like him. I admire his commitment to the race in the country. I think he's a patriot. I just think we need folks at this particular season of American and global history with international and military experience. I like Clark, but none of the other candidates, it's not just Clark, but none of the other people in this race have military experience.
Your resume is outstanding for the position.
For the role in the moment that we're in. I don't trust these politicians on Capitol Hill right now, like Mitt Romney and Joe Biden, who've never served in a combat situation, saying we need to go, basically, looking towards starting World War III. What does it cost them? I mean,
nothing, right.
We need people who have served and done strategy. I mean, I was a plans officer for the Army running top secret plans for the military. So I know this stuff. We need to be able to have people with that. I would only look for veterans right now in all the races. To me, that's so critically important.
All right. I'm going to, is there someplace that people could get more information? What's your website?
It's Noah for Nevada, noahfornevada.com.
Spell it?
NOAH. And the number 4 NV.com, or you could just write it out. Noah FORNEVADA.
Beautiful. And I think we're showing some of your website here so you guys could find out more about Noah. And I was going to tell you all about his stances on the issues, but you can look it up on there, and we're gonna have you back before the primary.
Good.
All right, like May or something. We'll get you back in here because I definitely want to talk to you about the sensational things that you said about Millie and then more so the sensational reaction you got from it. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to tell the people why they should vote for you in CD3 and take your time.
Well, thanks, Johnny. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here with you all. And so I just want to tell you, what I was telling Johnny here, at this moment in American history right now, our fundamental individual liberties have never been under more attack and in more peril than they are right now. The idea that we live in a free country is sort of becoming rapidly nothing more than an illusion. I mean, if you think about it, if we don't have the ability to vote for our leaders in free and fair elections and our representatives, we don't have medical autonomy to make our own healthcare decisions for ourselves and our family, we don't have freedom of speech, we can't express our opinions, and we don't have our parental rights. The government school says that we own your children, you don't have a right to know. Are we really free? If the government has the ability to seize our assets, restrict our travel unless we comply, or determine whether or not we get to practice our livelihood or open our businesses, are we really free? If we live in an environment where everything you hear from the media is coordinated propaganda to try to sway the public into accepting greater and greater incremental authoritarianism, or some global war, or to adopt some policy position that's in conflict with the interests of the American people, family, and businesses, then do we live in a free country? We're really rapidly approaching the point where we no longer live in a free country. But we have the ability today to get it back, but only if we act right now, because we're already a day late and $1 short. We're on borrowed time to this fight. But there are more of us than there are of them. And if we open our eyes, tell people, spread the truth boldly, tell people what's really going on, believe our own eyes, believe the minds that God gave us, exercise our parental rights, understand right is right, wrong is wrong. It's not about oppression and victim. It's about right and wrong. Reject Marxism, reject critical race theory, call out the savagery of abortion and the poison that it causes in our culture. Take back our schools. I mean, we were at the Power to Parent Gala last night. What an honor to be associated with that organization. We're big donors to that organization, my wife and I. But we need to take back the liberty that's our birthright as American citizens. In the United States, the sovereignty of the country resides in the people and the states. It's not a head of state. It's not an institution. It's not a Congress. It's the people. We don't just own the country, we are the country. But now it's being taken from us by the elite few at our expense and at the expense of our children. They're writing checks now against our children's credit. We need We need to get involved in the game today. That means support candidates who put America first, America last, and America everything in between. America may very well be called upon once again to save the world from another global crisis that we've seen before in history. I believe that's where we're headed. That's the path we're on. And the global elites, those who are in control right now, have put us on that path with the cooperation of the media. We need to support candidates who are not afraid to tell you exactly what's going on and will take positions on what they'll do to help and to right the ship and straighten the course. That's where I stand. I'm the only veteran in this race, and please support veterans. We need it more than ever. Thank you so much. It's Noah Malgeri. Check me out at noahfornevada.com. See you next time.
We could go for 4 hours, right? I mean, this has been almost 2 hours, and we haven't even talked about anything. You're going to be with Nephi at the CCW class that he's doing at that library. Do we have some graphics? So you guys could reach ccwvegas.com. They're going to have a thing in April for a concealed carry permit class.
Yep.
We also have the COVID thing coming up with Dr. Fred Simon.
Yep.
The Johnny Bruce Show, Wayne Allen Root, the Bat Lady, Dr. Fred Simon, Dr. What's his name? Oh my God. I forgot
Peter
his name.
McCullough, or?
Yes, Peter McCullough is going to be there. We have the CCRP convention coming up. There's going to be a meeting next Saturday. I don't know the date. Today is the 12th, so maybe it's the 19th. At 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. is going to be the meeting. From 12 till 5 will be the convention. We also have Vince over at the Asian American Club. Do you have that? Oh, I'm going to tell you guys all about that in the next episode. But where I forget the website. I had a graphic ready, but I lost it. I'm sorry, guys. But that's it, man. He threw me off because he was only supposed to be here for an hour. He's been here for 2 hours, and we got more to talk about. Guys, if you like this coverage, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Common Sense Nevada, The Public Square, the new CCSD Board of Trustees 22 and 24. And thank you for watching. My name is John Brookhagen with Noah Malgeri. I'll get you next time.